The 2018 MVP, who was born and raised from the streets of LA, is back and showing the league why he won the illustrious award in the first place. Okay, maybe he's not the same James Harden that was an explosive scoring threat on the Rockets, though he has been a lot better for the 76ers, at least in the media's eyes. But if you ask me, I don't think that's the case. See, when you look at Harden from a statistical point of view, you begin to notice that the stats he's putting up now are very similar, if not exact, to what he had been doing before for the Sixers. I mean, the points scored per game only went up from 21 to 21.9, and his steals only jumped up by 0.3, while blocks improved by 0.4. Now that, I will admit, is a huge increase, but nonetheless, defensive play seems to be the same. Plus, Harden's rebounds and assist numbers have moved, but only by a very marginal amount. You see what I'm getting at here? So if numbers didn't change, then what did? Well, I think this goes just a bit beyond the stats. Most people are going to say that the only reason the narrative has shifted around Harden is because the wins have been up and everything is looking sunny in Philadelphia. And I think we can all admit that after the Sixers brought Harden along midway through the season last year, that he would bolster the team and make them finals contenders. Of course, that didn't happen, as the Sixers team continued their struggles, even with Ben Simmons out and Harden in. And losing in the quarterfinals doesn't help put a really emotional, might I say irritating fan base at bay. Talk about toxic. I mean, the team's own superstar doesn't feel like he belongs in the city. Poor Embiid. But it's a bit off topic, so let's get back to the point, which is that the idea of Harden improving on the Sixers isn't about statistics or wins and losses, no. It's about what's on the court. And in Harden's case, what's on the court is his body language. That is what I believe has been the major difference between this season and last. And I'm sure we can all recall the moment when Harden let the ball roll by his feet while the opposing team came by and swooped it up for a score. And that in itself is a key example of poor body language. And even I can admit it was a terrible look for James. Hell, when Harden landed in Philly, reports continued to pour in about it seeming like Harden just didn't care. And to be honest, before the whole Harden fiasco, I was a big believer that body language didn't matter as long as your play was good. But after really looking into this situation, I now see its importance. And I think that Harden does too. Which is why it seems that Harden has pretty much cleaned up the whole body language problem. And that is my answer for why I believe that James has finally figured it out in Philadelphia. But that's not all I want to talk about. I also want to discuss the very true fact that Philly is going to need to make a move or two if they want to be in the finals by this year. And as of right now, the core of Harden, Embiid, and Maxey is very solid, but the Sixers are still only good enough to be 5th in the East. And if you look at the 4 teams in front of Philly, the only team that the Sixers have a good chance of beating in a 7-game series is Cleveland. But after watching Donovan Mitchell drop 71 points in a single game, I don't even know if that's true anymore. Which means that if the 76ers want to go from pretenders to real contenders, then they are going to need to bolster their roster before the trade deadline. And the perfect fit for the 76ers would be Eric Gordon, who has been heavily linked to Philadelphia all season. Honestly, the most important thing for Eric Gordon is that he gets freed from Houston, because the guy is so miserable over there. And the basketball reasons for Eric Gordon going to the Sixers is that Gordon has been known to make open threes, create a bit of offense, and isn't just some traffic cone on defense. But let's be real. No matter how nice of a player Gordon is, I'm not quite sure he's enough for the Sixers to be champions. Honestly, I think that Philly's going to need more depth on the roster because the team is just about 7 solid players in the rotation. That's about it. The 7 players I'm talking about are Harden, Embiid, Maxey, PJ Tucker, Tobias Harris, Anthony Melton, and Shake Melton. And if you're a real Sixers fan, then you know I left out some big names like Matisse Thybulle, Montrez, and Georges Niang. And let's be real, them 3, they're pretty replaceable. Now, before the season, Matisse was seen as a young and blossoming player in this league. However, the Sixers coach Doc Rivers doesn't seem to view him that way, because Matisse's minutes per game has seen a drastic decrease, with his minutes having gone down from 25.5 minutes per game all the way to 11.5 this season. So if the coach doesn't see any value in this player, then he'd probably be best useful for the team if he were traded for some assets. And now is a better time than ever to move on from Matisse. While his value is still somewhat high from last season, Another guy the front office shouldn't shy away from trading is backup guard Shake Milton, who's been solid off the bench. His shooting percentages from the field back this up, with Shake having 510 from the field and shooting 375 from 3. And I believe that if the Sixers were to maybe package Shake and a few picks, then they might be able to get a handful of assets in return and bolster that depth. But if depth isn't the solution, then it'll probably come down to the stars of the team stepping up, or rather, the man they paid like a star. I'm talking about Tobias Harris, who was given a 5-year, $180 million contract back in 2019. And since signing that contract, Tobias has been pretty underwhelming. I mean, not a single All-Star appearance, and this guy's only averaging like 16 points. Plus, his rebounds and assists are at an all-time low since arriving in Philadelphia. And the Sixers cannot afford to pay a guy like him all of this money just to play like a role player when he's getting paid like an all-star. So if Philly wants any chance at coming close to a finals appearance, then Tobias is going to need to step up, and the front office is going to need to make some moves. Alright, that's it for the video, and I wanted to give a shout out and prayer for DeMar Hamlin, who just got hurt as of the recording of this video. Hope he's okay, gets better soon. That's all. Deuces.